Oh, 3, 2, 1. Hi there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, moms and dads. Welcome to another one of my videos. I am here with Jake. Everybody say hi, Jake. Jake, say hi to everybody who's watching.
Hey, hopefully, how's it going?
Yeah, hopefully you'll find a whole bunch of people. I've got a few, vegans that follow me that I think would really benefit to see some of your vegan outreach. When I wake up in the morning, I have a cup of coffee and I log on to YouTube just to see who's doing a live, and I stumbled upon Jake. I think that's how I met you, right?
Yeah, I think so. I do the same thing pretty much.
Yeah, and he's like fearless. I mean, he goes out there by himself, and from what I can imagine, you just got a camera on a tripod. You pick some corner of the city you're in and you just go at it. And I am just like, wow, I am envious of your fearlessness. Just way to go, dude. You just go at it. And I love the sincerity in which you do it. So I heard him talking to some Christians a while back, and Jake is not a believer. You're not a believer. You're an atheist, agnostic. What would you call yourself?
Yeah, atheist.
Okay, atheist. So, and I'm like, to talk to people who believe, the stuff that us Christians believe, you kind of got to know a little bit about it. You can't play football unless you know the rules of the game. You don't have to agree with it, but you got to know a little bit about it. So I sent Jake my book, and I was like laughing inside when I heard you using parts of it.
Yeah, last week. Yeah, I'm open to learning more about the Bible and about how it relates to veganism, and I'm so happy I met you and we've talked. Right on. You sent me the book.
We Christians, we believe a lot of wacky stuff, and I bet to you atheists it even sounds even worse. So, oh look, that makes it even bigger. Oh, I found a new button. Okay, great. I am learning how to do all this StreamYard video stuff. So I find that if you can learn, as a vegan animal rights activist, if you can learn how to work, not so much within, your ballpark, but with what we believe, and, rather, you don't have to accept it, but just work within our, play in our playground a little bit, you'll be able to advocate for veganism much better, because you can beat the pants off us Christians with some of the stuff that we believe. You really can. And that's kind of what I wrote the book about. So when he did this one thing, what do you call it? Outreach? Yeah. You were doing an outreach a week or so ago. And as you were walking over, you're like, "Vegan heretic, are you there?" Remember saying that?
Yeah. Yep.
So I'm in the chat trying to feed him lines to say, but it gets so wonky, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, well, I'm going to play some of that, and we're going to go through it step by step. And Jake, if you got something you want to add in, just say hit pause or something like that, or throw your hands up or whatever you want to do, burp, fart, I don't care. And just tell me to stop and we can take your commentary, and we can go with this as long as you want. So let me just hit, let's start. Oh, there you are. All right, groovy.
But, it says solve this riddle. It's a Jesus thing. Well, I don't know if you can see it. Can I show the riddle to my stream? Yeah, it's about Jesus. Yep, that's what I thought. Vegan heretic, are you still here?
See, there you go, man. Like, yes.
Starts here, they're fishing. They hear a splash. Somebody shouts, "What did they say?"
Man overboard. I got that. Yeah.
So it's cold on the day he's in the water. This one tells the temperature of the air on the day they were fishing.
Oh, the temperature of the air.
I'm going to ask you. Okay, so let's set this up. You're doing your vegan outreach, and I want you to consider this guy. And let me start by talking about this guy. All right. And I'm going to defend him a little bit. I'm not going to defend Christianity. I don't want to do that to you. Okay. But I'm going to defend his purpose. He's not doing this, or he's doing this kind of for the same reason you're doing it. You both have good motives. He's doing it because in his heart, he really believes that if you're not saved, you're going to spend eternity in hell. So his desire is to help you. Even if you think we're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, all right, that is what's in his heart. So I kind of cut the Christians a little bit of slack when they do that. So he's got his little chart there to hook you in and get you into conversation. And I think it's really good the way you let him go through it at first. You let him go through his whole thing, because what that did was it allowed him to feel, let's just say, superior in that moment. Like, oh, I'm teaching you. I'm doing what God wants me to do. So you're building a little bit of a connection there. Did you feel that was happening?
Right. Yeah. That was kind of my intent when I started talking to him. I wanted to give him some time and let him kind of do what he wanted to do. And then, yeah, I wanted to kind of swing it back to about the animals. That's what I try to do whenever I do my outreach with anyone. I always try to give them a chance to kind of explain themselves and how they feel. And so, yeah, that's what I was doing there.
What do you think happens to you after you?
That's a good question. What do you think happens to animals when they die?
Yes.
Die?
And that's where you brought it in. Were you waiting for that moment, or is that it just felt like I'm going to go for it?
Yeah, I just felt like going for it there. Like, yeah.
Good. Okay, it's because he probably could have gone on for the next 2 hours. So I'm kind of glad you, like I said, you made the connection, and now you're like saying, okay, I heard what you're here about. Now this is what I'm here about, and I think that worked out really nice. I enjoyed that.
And the bodies decay. The Bible says that they doesn't teach that they have an eternal soul, but people have.
Okay, first point. You said the Bible doesn't teach that they have an eternal soul. I don't know where he got that from.
That's something that I hear a lot from Christians. They always say that animals don't have souls. They're not made in. He kept saying after that they're not made in God's image, right?
Right. When the Bible talks about souls, it's talking about a non-physical thing, life force that God breathed into humans. Now, in the Old Testament, the word is nephesh, nepheshaya. Now, that word nephesh is used about 400 times in the Bible. That's a lot. The same word nephesh that's used for humans, a soul, that God breathed soul, is also used to describe animals. I don't know if you look in the book, my book, you can see there's several. I give this a listing of a lot of verses that do that. I don't want to get into that here, but anybody who's watching at home, if you don't have my book, just do a search on the word nephesh in the Old Testament, and you're going to see all the listings, and you'll see that it's used of humans and animals equally. God doesn't make any difference between the use of the word. So when a Christian says to you, animals don't have souls, you can say, I got this impression from the Bible that it's different, because the same breath of life that God breathed into humans, he breathed it into animals. You can specifically refer to the first 2 chapters of Genesis mostly. That's going to do it best. But can you see how knowing that really, it's not like you're telling him he's out of his mind. You're just saying, your book tells me that God breathed the same breath of life, the same nephesh into animals. Now he puts him on the rebound, but right now he's still feeling like he's in a power play, I think. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. The Bible says that God made man in his own image. In the image of God, he made them, male and female, he made them. And so we have a...
Did you? Now, that was the second point you brought up, right?
Right, yeah. Made in God's image. But I think that's funny that he said male and female, because, I mean, there's male and female animals, there's male and female, like, plants as well. So, I mean, I'm not sure where he was going with that.
I don't think he even knows where he's going with that. I think a lot of times they're taught this, and they don't really know the full weight of what they're quoting. Let me give you this. This is going to take me about 2 or 3 minutes, okay? But I think this is real important when you're talking to a Christian, because if you can grasp what I'm about to lay here, you're going to be miles ahead of what most Christians even understand when it comes to God's image. It's good to know a timeline of the Bible. So Adam and Eve, beginning of time. We all know that one, right? Everybody knows that story. And then you got Noah, and then Abraham, and then Moses. Now Moses is here in time, looking back over here at Adam and Eve, telling that to a bunch of people here. Now, who are the people here he's talking to? I always say, find out the who, what, when, where of every verse, and it'll help you find a vegan answer. So who is talking Moses? Who's he talking to? The Israelites. Who are these Israelites, these Hebrews? They were the ones that right about here were in slavery to Egypt for about 400 years, 440 years, okay, somewhere around there. So these guys here were believing in the Egyptian pagan gods. You following me so far? Okay.
Yep.
So they believe that. So they didn't understand the beginning over here, Adam and Eve. They knew nothing about that. So they're hearing for the first time that in the beginning, God made you in his image, male and female. Now, at this time, males and females were not equal, were they? Moses is dropping them some truth saying, originally when God made you over here, he made you equal in his image. So that's kind of like one of the first shots, I would say, at women's liberation in the Bible. You got to remember, when Moses is talking to people, they're already in an extremely sin-filled way of life. Okay, you got that? So that needs to be taken in consideration. So this guy here, when he says stuff like that, he's going here, looking through Moses's understanding, and then going back into the timeline. As a vegan, I often suggest we start here in the beginning with Genesis chapter 1, and then we look at the Bible going like that. But does that kind of, am I explaining in a way so you can understand why I think the meat eater is a little bit skewed on his understanding?
Yeah, I remember reading some of that in your book too. Yeah, about the different timelines and everything.
Can you see how important it is? So when these guys here heard that they were made in God's image, okay, remember, they thought the pagan gods made them to be slaves day in and day out. Every day of their lives, they're supposed to work until they die. And then their children are supposed to work until they die. And that's all they knew. But now they hear, wait a minute, God made us in his image. The God that just rescued us from 400 years of slavery, we were made in his image. This is awesome. So when they heard God's image, they didn't hear that they were special above the animals. They heard that they were just plain special. They weren't slaves. They were actually made in God's image. So the way they would have understood it is drastically different than what most Christians get today. Are you feeling it?
Yeah.
So, and it gets even better, because if we keep going back with that understanding, okay, the next verse is going to be, or excuse me, the verses prior are all they know about God at that point. So we've got, it's Genesis 1, I think it's 26 or 27, when he said God made him in their image. Well, what did they know about God's image? We got 20 something verses prior. And what did God do? He created the heavens and the earth. He created the land. He created the water. He created the stars. He created the fish. He created the birds. He created the animals on the land. All he did was create and give life. There's no way they would understand being made in God's image meant we could end all that life that God just made. It just wouldn't have happened in their understanding of what Moses was relaying. Does that help?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. If I'm going too fast or I'm being too crazy, remember, I just love this stuff and I'll talk about it all day long. So just say, Steve, you're running on his mouth. Shut the heck up, you dumb hippie. Okay. And hopefully you guys watching, I hope this clears up a lot. And I want to go into a lot of detail. And unfortunately, I'm going to make Jake sit and suffer through my lectures, because I'm actually using Jake as a sacrifice. I'm sacrificing him so all you activists who are watching, you can learn, because I think this stuff is essential to my vegan outreach. And I think it's been so beneficial on why I've had, at least what I consider to be a decent amount of success in talking to my fellow Christians about veganism.
What about animal cruelty? God's against animal cruelty, right?
Oh, of course, yeah, because animals are part of God's creation, and the Bible teaches that God gave man dominion over them, and we're to be good stewards of what God.
Okay, now let's get into that. First off, I'm glad that you took him off his path, because he would have kept going with trying to save your hellbound soul. Again, very nice, but not where we want to go. We want to get this into the vegan thing, so let's set the anchor there for veganism.
He said dominion, but then he also said stewards, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, let's go back and hear all that, and then I'll come back and go further on the dominion thing.
God has given us.
Exactly, stewards.
Yeah. But how about this? You ever taken something that wasn't yours? Does it have to be?
Okay, he agreed with the stewards, but now he changed the subject. He's going to do this a lot to you. And
yeah, he does.
He did. Like, why do they do that? Why can't they just ask a question and then you answer it and then you deal with that until either you say, yes, I agree, no, I disagree, or we can't reach a conclusion, let's just move on. But they don't want to stay anchored on anything. And I find that it's really hard to get them to anchor into anything. Dominion. A snappy, quick one, like if I only have quick time, like you had plenty of time to talk to him. So I think I would have gone differently had I been there. But if I'm just doing it quickly, I say, yes, and God gave us dominion in verse 28, but in the very next verse, the very next sentence, he puts vegan boundaries on that dominion. That's the easiest way that, to deal with it quick. But let's again, remember what I said about Moses talking here, okay, about to a group of slaves that were just kept saved, just rescued from slavery. And he said, God gave you dominion. These slaves are already meat eaters. Okay, they're already eating meat. So would they have heard dominion allows them to eat meat? Not at that time. They would have said, remember, wow, God made us equal in his image. We're not made in the image of slaves. This is wonderful. We're made in God's image and God gave you dominion. They would have said, you mean the gods, these Egyptian gods don't own the world? We have the world. It's ours. We can run it. You see, they would have never even in their mind thought about eating animals, that being permission to eat animals, because they were already eating animals. You dig?
Right.
So
yeah, exactly.
Yet this guy doesn't grasp that. And I got to say, the majority of Christians I talk to don't quite grasp that. So that would be the dominion thing that I'd start interjecting there. But it's tough. Nobody let's keep going then. Oh, I'm loving this.
Because of this problem called sin. Do you know how to have your sins forgiven though?
Well, do you think that when we eat animals, that's cruel to animals?
I don't think so, because God tells us in his word that he gives us permission to do that.
He thinks God gives us permission to be cruel to animals. That's what it sounded like to me. Did you get that? Or
yeah, I mean, he said that it's not cruel to eat them because God gives us permission to eat them.
Okay.
So yeah, it's kind of strange.
In the Bible, a lot of things are descriptive, but not prescriptive. So in other words, right. God will say a lot of things, but that doesn't mean it's what he's ordering. I often say it like this, and this is a silly story, but I tell it like this when I speak at, activist groups and churches and things like that. I go, when Moses is talking to these people, I'm going to keep using my timeline. Okay. So when Moses is talking to these people, mentally, their maturity, their spiritual maturity level is so low. It's kind of like a kid who believes in Santa Claus. So think about it like this. You got a 4-year-old who believes in Santa Claus. And you just say, well, you're getting older. I want to, you're 5 years old now. I don't want you to believe that. So no, Santa Claus is real. He's not real. No, he's not real. He's not real. There's no way a big guy like that can go down a chimney. No, Santa Claus is real. He can do it. Well, we don't even have a chimney. Santa Claus can appear at the front door. Okay, well, even if he did, there's no way he could travel around the world. Santa Claus is magic. I mean, mentally, the kid just isn't in a place where he can understand. You follow? That was right. Israel at that time. That was the Hebrew nation. In their mind, with their understanding of all these gods and the way it was for hundreds of years, they just couldn't wrap their brains around it. So sometimes God says, all right, you're not going to, let's use sacrifice, for example. They're like, God, we're not going to give up sacrifice. That's all we know. At that time, they were sacrificing their children. They were burying their children in the walls of their houses to serve the house gods. They were worshiping gods of the sun, gods of the moon, gods of the harvest. They thought if they didn't, they would die. They were in such a mental state of immaturity. They just couldn't grasp that that wasn't necessary. So what did God do? He said, okay, fine. You're not going to give up sacrifice. But instead of just doing it wherever you wanted, okay, doing it over here and doing it over here, you can only do it at the temple. And if you do it at the temple, it has to be done by a priest. And the priest has to be done of a certain lineage. And that priest has to then take the blood and do this. And has to do that. So in other words, God said, if you're going to do it, okay, do it. He restricted it. Those weren't rules on how to do sacrifice. They were rules on how to restrict sacrifice. And then by the time we get over here to the other prophets like Amos and Jeremiah and Isaiah, they're like, God never wanted sacrifice at all. You guys did. God was just humoring you. Now they might say, well, that's Old Testament stuff. We can reach into the New Testament. We got Jesus, when they said to Jesus, what about divorce? And Jesus says to him, he goes, in the beginning, God never wanted divorce. He let you have it. Moses let you have divorce because of the hardness of your heart. In other words, God's like, I'm not going to force you. I'll work within your parameters that you give me, but this isn't what I wanted. Does that work for you?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, good. Because you're nodding at me like, is he for real or what?
Saying that the animals were clean to eat after the flood.
Hi, hon. Oops, hold on.
Sorry.
Yes, dear. You want to say hi to Jake?
I didn't know you were recording.
You want to say hi to Jake?
Oh, is that guy you said that's a good activist?
Yeah, here, wait. Come say hi to Jake. Okay.
Hi, Jake. Oh, I'm sorry. Your camera's over there. Hi, Jake. I was coming to see if you wanted a bite of the cupcake thing. But
Yeah, I want to bite a cupcake thing.
I'm taking a break. You know, I'm baking, but my hair I get a headache when I have my hair up in a clip too long, so I got to take a break.
She brings it to me, but she already took a bite out of it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, got to try it first, right? That looks delicious.
It's a cupcake inside a cone.
A vegan sugar cone.
Nice.
Okay, thank you, honey bunch.
That's it. Yeah.
No.
Can you believe he doesn't like chocolate? It's like the most. More for me. That's what I say.
Go.
Okay, sorry. Have fun.
I'm working.
I know. Sorry, I didn't know you started.
Be gone, woman.
Is it that late already?
Be gone, woman. Remember, I'm the man of the house or whatever that stuff is. Sorry about that. She's awesome. My wife is really a good cook. It's just, but I like picking on her. If I know somebody's watching, I'm going to pick on her. That's what you do after 35 years together. It's ridiculous. All right. Where was I with this guy? I really have to get more professional with my teaching, don't I?
No, you're great.
To eat animals as well.
But he also said that we're stewards of the animals, right? We should take care of them.
Well, we should take care of the creation.
Right.
Yes.
Well, God
But he also
created
gave them
animals too.
dominion over those things.
Right.
He gave
But
them
does that?
dominion
Why does
to
that mean that we should just eat them though when we have other products,
Because
right?
he gave them for that purpose. Yeah.
Ah, that's right. That one really gets me when they say God made them for that purpose. So what I want to discuss is, did God make animals for that purpose? Is that a hard one for you to overcome when they say that?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is for a lot. I can, again, if you look at it from this Moses part right here, it's going to sound like, God made them food because Moses is giving instructions on how to kill them. Remember? So and as I said, those instructions narrowed it down. You couldn't just go here, there, or anywhere. You had to do it a certain way. So meat was this accessible. Now it's only this accessible. So this street preacher dude doesn't quite grasp that. But where the heck am I going with this? All right. So what was he just saying? He was just, I just lost my train of thought. Isn't that, I'm thinking of that cupcake.
Yeah, right. That looked really good.
Well, do you think that when we eat animals, that's cruel to animals?
I don't think so,
that's
because
where we
God
were,
tells
yeah.
us in His Word that He gives us permission to do that. Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
permission.
where we were. Permission. Okay, Genesis chapter 2. God says, and it's so important that we learn, just honest, if you're an activist, just Genesis chapter 1 and 2, it's one page of the Bible. Okay, it's maybe 70 verses altogether. If you could just, even if you're an atheist, I'm sorry, but I gotta say, if you can just wrap your brain around that, you'll be able to argue with guys like him as well as I do. Okay, but Genesis chapter 2, we've got Genesis 1 and 2, where God puts His seal of approval on everything He did and said it is very good. Not just good, but very good. And in the Hebrew, when you say it twice like that, it means super duper good. So, but after that, in Genesis chapter 3, sin enters the world. So in 1 and 2 is all we've really got to see how God wanted us to behave. And in that, He said when He made man, Genesis chapter 2, it's not good for man to be alone. And what did He do immediately? Well, everybody automatically thinks He made Eve. No, no. He made animals. That was the very next thing He did, and brought them to Adam to see what Adam wanted to name them. So when God saw that Adam was alone in the Garden of Eden, after Genesis 1:29, where we were instructed to eat plants only, and in the Garden of Eden, where there was no death and sin haven't entered the world, sin is what allowed death to enter the world. Since there was no death, there was no cheeseburgers, and animals were made for companionship, not consumption. Does that sound good?
Right. Yeah,
Can
exactly.
you use it?
I remember
Can you
reading
use
this
it?
in your book too. Yeah.
Oh,
Yep,
good.
exactly.
I'm not a very good writer. I mean, like sometimes when I write that stuff, I'm like, did people really understand what I was trying to say? I'm a stupid juggler in Las Vegas. The first time I had no idea what I was getting into when I wrote that book.
That's great.
So, thank you. I'm glad it's been a benefit to. I mean, I'm humbled. I am. I just love when I get notes like that. It makes me feel. It's like as an entertainer. You know, I'm an entertainer, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anybody watching, I'm a juggler in Las Vegas, and when you get on stage, it's an arrogant thing. I'm walking on stage saying, what I do is so cool, you're going to spend money to look at it. So there is a bit of arrogance in me, but really it's not just the money, it's the applause. I love that I practiced, for 30, 40 years juggling. And then when I get on stage and I do something and the audience applauds, man, that just warms your soul. So when a guy like Jake or anybody sends me an email like, I use this line from your book, I mean, it just warms me it just makes me feel so good. So it's kind of like getting applause. So yeah, I guess that is arrogance. I don't know. Okay. And that's pride, and pride is a sin. I'm a sinner. Okay. So we got over that animals were made for food. No, when God made the animals, there was no mention of eating any animals whatsoever. There was no mention of eating animals anytime. Okay, this is Genesis chapter 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Genesis chapter 9 is the first time we hear God saying it's okay to eat any living thing. So we've got, what is it? I think that's 1,500 years, 1,200 years. I could be off a little. See, when it comes to Bible years, when people talk, we're going it's not like there was a reporter who started here and write down the whole thing throughout here. And a lot of it's based on genealogies or the age of this guy and the age of that guy, and he had this son, so we can kind of figure. So if we're off a couple hundred years, don't think us Christians are trying to deceive you. Okay, it's just we don't know for sure, and at least I'm honest enough to say that we're close, but maybe not for sure. So
God gave permission, saying that the animals were clean to eat after the flood in Genesis. God gave them permission to eat animals as well.
But he also,
you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So I think I remember something in your book saying that God was angry about people eating animals, or why did the flood happen in the first place?
Okay, there's there's a few, but I'm going to say some of the popular views are that the flood was a literal, actual event, that Noah's Ark really, actually, truly happened. Then there's also Christians, like all of us Christians, we don't always believe in all the exact same things. We might have our own little nuances of what we believe about something. Some think that the flood story was just an allegory to get to explain something, again, to these slaves. Now, these slaves that were just being rescued are hearing about this for the first time. So they knew a story called the Epic of Gilgamesh, which means there was a flood. All right. So what a lot of people think is Moses was using the flood, that it actually happened. That no one questions. But was it a worldwide or just a local flood? And since they didn't have worldwide news or the web or internet or anything, they saw everything flooded and they're like, it's a worldwide flood. Okay, it could have been either. I don't think it makes a bit of difference. Again, Christians, we're not trying to lie. We just don't know. So it could have been just that Moses was using that flood to get a story across to them, an understanding of God saying that you need to get your business straight, or I've got the ability to wipe you all out. That is one way of understanding it if you don't believe in a literal flood. And of course, if it is a literal flood, then there's some good vegan stuff we can get out of that too. So that would be, I want you to understand both views of that. So now when they get off the boat, God, the first time, we're going to get into the permission part, he says, I now, just as I gave you every plant to eat, I now give you every moving thing. they can be your food. Now that sounds like it's animals. Here's the strange part. Again, when? Think of my little timeline here. I really should get like a digital timeline. A little timeline here. Okay. This is Genesis chapter 6. Well, maybe right about here. Okay. Throughout all this time here, they were all vegan. So we're talking again, 12, maybe 1,500 years of veganism right there. Okay. Then finally God said you can eat it. But in Genesis, that was Genesis chapter 9. Oops, sorry. Genesis 9. So in chapter 8 and 7 and 6 and 5 and 4, I want you all to notice, if you don't want to read the Bible, I'll go through it a little bit here. When God describes the animals in all those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 chapters, God doesn't just say moving things. He says the animals that fly, the animals that swim, the beast, the cattle on the land, the beast of the, it describes them in categories. It does that in Genesis chapter 1 several times. Genesis chapter 2, the birds of the air, the creeping things, the things that, again, everything's in category. In 3, in chapter 4, in chapter 5, again, it describes the animals, birds that fly, fish that swim, animals on the land. And then finally, when we get to Genesis chapter 9, he says, I now give you the moving things. Well, we just discovered in the 8 chapters prior, moving things is a totally separate category from birds and from cattle. And I'm using their words, cattle, not vegan words, okay? I'm just using, so when you're talking to a Christian, rather than argue with, they're not cattle, they're persons, I don't want to go there yet. I'll go there later. I just want to use their language so they can understand me. I go, so when God says he's talking about cattle, or he's talking about birds, or he's talking about fish, and he's talking about moving things, what the heck is moving things? Because it's obviously not all those other things. You follow? So You look up that word in Hebrew. Again, it's so important to luckily enough, I come from a Jewish family. But you can look up the Hebrew word. The word is remes, which is remes. Remes has a very specific thing. If you guys watching this at home or watching me and Jake talk here, just hit the pause button and go Google remes. It means creeping things, things that swarm like locusts or worms, or it was never, God never gave Noah, when he got off the ark, permission to eat cows, chickens, pigs, or hamburgers. Okay, it just wasn't there. He's like, I now give you permission to eat the creeping things, the bugs, the remes. That's an interesting thing. So it's not exactly 100% vegan, but the point you're making is, if you're going to play in the Christian's playground, knowing that when he quotes to you, well, God said we can eat moving things. God said we could eat bugs. You want to eat the locusts? Go eat the locusts, but leave the chickens, cows, and pigs alone. Do you see how that works? And I'm using their words. I'm using their beliefs. I'm using everything that's in the Bible. Okay, you can use the Bible. Not always, but this is one that comes out to be a very good vegan win, I think.
That we're stewards of the animals, right? We should take care of them.
Well, we should take care of the creation.
Right. Well, God created animals too.
Over those things.
Right. But why does that mean that we should just eat them though, when we have other products, right?
He gave them for that purpose. Yeah.
But we don't have to eat them though, right?
In the original worlds, God, there was no eating of animals. God made the world.
Right.
There wasn't any of that. So do we need to? No. But I will say this, but God does give permission to. Yeah. So
but we also have permission to lie, right?
No.
But
he
what?
never gives permission.
Well, how did you feel about saying that? Did that just come out of you? And
yeah, that we have permission to lie. Like,
yeah.
I mean, we can. I mean, it's something that he said everybody does, right? I mean, I don't know. And he was trying to imply that like everybody steals too, which I thought was kind of weird. Like when he was saying those things.
Okay. I'm like, was that like a mouth fart that you just did there? Like, oh, well, no, so don't worry, I got your back, because I can give you a little something to play with this on. Okay, there was a time. Why am that name escaping me? I just read it today. Rahab, I think it was Rahab. She was imagine her to be like a hooker type chick. Okay, she hid some Hebrew spies and protected them when the Egyptians were coming to get them. All right, and she's like, no, they're not here. We just had our customers here. You know, the way a hooker would do. Okay, so they went elsewhere and she spared them. So she told a lie, and that was totally approved. So could you say what you did? it's twisting it, but hopefully that helps you. Okay. So there's something, well, essentially what I think the lesson that's being taught there is when there's a greater good that's going to serve God, it's okay to do that. You know, because I mean, the top 10, thou shalt not lie, but there's a point where it did lie, and no, God didn't say we could lie, but there's a point where it was looked at favorably. Okay. So
But when we eat animals for an optional product, that's cruel to them, right?
Not when God says that we're allowed to. No. Yeah. So if God,
So
we want to do what God tells us.
I'd like that, you know, what it's happening there is, you know, you're talking about cruelty and he just keeps going back to permission. He's totally dodging that what he's doing involves cruelty. So we're going to need to establish cruelty. You want to do that now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I'm like, sometimes I wonder, okay, Jake's at home right now watching TV above me, just going, let Steve rattle off. But okay, what's going to be cruelty? I wrote a chapter in my book and I call it, and God said it was groovy, because it pretty much lays down what God wanted for the animals. But I often say, if God made animals with desires, denying them those desires would be going against God's will, which of course is sin. Remember what we talked about earlier. So what were those things? Well, if God made some animals like pigs to snuffle through the leaves and dig in the ground, chickens to scratch and run in the sunshine, interaction with their own species so they can build a hierarchy or a family unit, or cows that like to run and play and eat grass and have sex at a normal pace the way they were planned to. If we are, as humans, are to do anything that interrupts God's natural program for those animals, that would be considered cruelty, you know? So, and it even comes down to, you know, locking pigs up into a factory farm. No access to sunlight. Did God make them to want to lay in the sun? Yeah. Have you ever been to a sanctuary? I have, where the pigs are like laying in the sun, like, oh, this is awesome. Denying animals that opportunity, that's cruelty. So that's how I would fight that. And I really wish more activists would take time to get to know, you know, that part of Genesis chapter 1, because it really does lay out what these animals, you know, what's Genesis 1 and 2 on what these animals would need to be happy. It's I'm not even, see, and I think the beauty of that is you're not arguing that you can't kill them and eat them at that point. I believe it's wrong, 100% wrong. Don't get anybody get me wrong. Again, my point of view here is I'm trying to deal within their parameters, their parameters right here. Okay. That's all I want to do. I have different feelings than what a lot of my Christian brothers believe in. So, but I don't want to get there. I just want to fight them on their grounds. I think because I think it allows me to get the vegan message across better. So I would use that. That's it. Denying an animal its natural behaviors, that God programmed that animal natural. And you can also use that. That's when it comes to things like, you know, the artificial insemination. What if that's what you have to do to make food? Think about what Jesus would say if you walked up to him and said, I'm going to take that bull and I'm going to stick its head between those two trees over there. I'm going to jerk it off and grab a handful of that bull jizz. Then I'm going to take the bull out and put a cow in there and stick it up the cow's woohoo and get her pregnant. You think God's way of getting animals pregnant was not sufficient? You think you've got a better way? Or like when a Christian says, oh, it's just a dirty, filthy pig or a stupid chicken. God made the pig as clean as God wanted the pig to be. It doesn't need to be cleaner. If that's the way God wanted it, that's the way it should be. You're a Christian. You don't have the right to challenge that. If a chicken is stupid, I don't think it is. But if it is, it's because God wanted it to have that level of intelligence. And it has the level of intelligence that it needs to survive a long, happy life. Who are you to interrupt that? That is cruelty. See how I did that? Okay. Enough of that enough of the cruelty lecture. I should put my glasses on. I can't really see these little buttons too well. Do you see me leaning in and coming back?
Well, why in the Garden of Eden there was no animals being killed?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I'd say this because in the world
you got them there.
That we originally lived in, right? We didn't need that. There was no death.
Right, but you said we don't need that now either. It's
Don't need
optional.
it, but it's optional. It's not a wrong thing for us to eat an animal. So that's the difference that I think maybe we might be making. Is
I think you're being a little contradictory on
But
yourself.
that's a sin thing. I'm saying it's not a sin thing. It's an option thing. So you
But
have
if
the
it's
option to
optional,
leave it. That doesn't mean it's sin.
You
to
could
do
choose something else.
Sure.
Isn't it cruel to the animals?
Because God gives permission to.
I think you're contradicting yourself
That's not a
there.
one-for-one trade, my friend. No. When God says that something is wrong, and we do that thing that God says is wrong, that is where we've breached the gap. We've gone where we should not go. When God doesn't say what is wrong, and we actually then say, well, God doesn't say it's wrong, but I'm going to create a law, that, where God doesn't give us a law, that actually God, he does have severe words for it. It's called legalism in the scriptures, and that's to create law where there is no law, to go beyond what God says. And throughout
I'm hearing circular stuff there. How about you? It's like every time you object to him and you bring up the cruelty thing, he avoids it by saying God said it's okay. And I think that if we could have just established what cruelty to animals is, like I just did in that 2 minutes of me yapping prior to this, I think that would have changed a lot of what his answers would have been.
God's against animal abuse.
abuse.
When
yes,
you eat
but
an animal,
not
you
in
have
kind
to
of
abuse
peace.
them to
Perfect.
eat them.
No,
You're taking
there's
their
a
life
way to kill it, and there's
for
a
an option.
way. No.
How is there
Yeah,
there
they could give
a
animals
humane
that are
way
fighting.
to kill an animal?
If you take its
Perfect.
life in a way that doesn't cause it undue pain beyond what is necessary. to
Isn't
take
that
its life.
the ultimate pain though, taking someone's life?
So let me ask you this:
Did you see how he just totally avoided you?
Yeah, again.
Well, why are you here arguing for that? No,
Because I respect animals and I think there's no humane way to kill an animal.
What? Did you believe in God?
That doesn't matter.
Do you believe in God?
I am so glad you said that. Because if you would have gone in and said no, I mean, he's assuming it already. He's assuming you're an atheist anyhow.
Yeah,
So,
he assumed that I was a liar, assumed that I'm a thief, and then he assumed that I don't believe in God. So he was assuming a lot of different things, but he wouldn't.
Yep.
But he just kept going back to God gives us permission to basically be cruel to animals.
it seems like that's his answer to quite a bit of this. It doesn't really give you much to work with, so I'm glad you said that. Let's see where he goes. I'm hearing what he does. There's another street preacher kind of guy, Ray Comfort. Again, I like these guys. I'm a Christian. I like what they do. I understand what they do. Don't have to like the way they do it, but and I think he's using a lot of Ray Comfort's lines. So it's almost like he's just being a parrot, just copycatting what he's seen from others, which is okay. I mean, from our Christian point of view, he is out there trying to do the same thing you're trying to do for animals. So, kudos to both of you on that ground.
It doesn't matter.
Well, you see, actually, I think that matters far more, because if
It matters to him because he's out there doing Christian outreach. You're out there doing vegan outreach. So the idea, what I'm hoping for is, that you're going to steal the conversation away and challenge him on his Christian beliefs, which I think you're trying to do, but he just keeps coming back to permission. Let it play.
you don't believe in God, then
I
why
think
is it
that
wrong?
if you do believe
Do
in
you
God,
believe in God?
then you should respect
But
animals.
do you believe in God?
But it's not about me. It's about
if you
it's
don't
about
believe in God,
the animals.
why is it wrong? Why is it wrong to kill an
Because
animal?
the animals are sentient just like we are,
Why is that wrong to kill it?
because they don't want to die.
Now he's trying to pull you into the moral argument. Are you familiar with that at all?
But it almost sounded like if I don't believe in God and then it shouldn't be wrong to kill a person either. Is almost what it sounded like he was saying. Which
That
was,
is part of the moral argument.
Yeah.
Okay. And that one to me has been very convincing. There's arguments like the teleological, the argument by design, the argument from the cosmos, the existence of the cosmology, the planets. And then there's the moral. The thing is, if we are creatures of evolutionary accident, then according to like Richard Dawkins, there is no right, there is no wrong, there is just indifference. We are just We are just dancing to our own DNA. Whatever we feel like doing could actually be true. That you can't morally say it's wrong to kill animals unless there is a God. That's what he's trying to get across. I kind of hold that point of view myself, but I don't want to turn this into an evangelical thing. I'm just saying that so you understand what he's trying to get. But that would mean, yes,
Right.
he could kill a human because it's not wrong. It's, you're a cosmic accident. There is no right or wrong.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I kind of agree with that to an extent. Like, I wouldn't kill a person or an animal unless I had to, right? Unless like if I was defending myself, then I would have to do that, but I still wouldn't think that that's right. Just like lying or stealing, like I already know those things are wrong, whether I believe in God or not. So I'm not going to do those things. Right.
And the moral argument becomes, what do you base right and wrong on? Unless there's a standard above us, then your idea of right and wrong has no more validity than his idea of right and wrong. And his idea is no more different than Hitler's idea. You see, unless there's a standard above us all who can say, this is what's right, y'all just nothing but opinion. And that's what comes down to the moral argument. And this has been debated by so many Christians and atheists, been going on for decades that I know of, ever since I started reading the Bible 50 years ago. And again, I don't want to turn this into an evangelical thing, but just so the people who are watching and so you understand, that's what he's going for. And I hope you don't let him drag you there because, I want to keep this vegan centered. So back to Street Preacher Dude.
Why is that wrong? Why does it matter? Do you have any objective reason why it's wrong other than just opinion?
If you can choose a product that has animal abuse behind it or one that has compassion behind it, why do you choose the one with animal abuse behind it?
Maybe I like meat.
So you don't think that God would think that's wrong?
Well, hold on. You said, do you believe in God? Again, we're back to that.
It doesn't matter about me.
I know
it's about you and the animal and the way you treat animals.
Actually, I think the opposite because, my friend, here's the problem. If you don't believe in God, you have no reason to say why it's actually wrong other than it's your opinion.
But you believe in God. So you think animal abuse is wrong in God's eyes, but then you pay for animal abuse.
And that was a great way to get it because he could just keep going for hours on the moral argument. But I think it was very good that you just said, what about you though? Okay, let's take you off the examination board and have Street Preacher on the examination board. And I think that was the direction you were going in, and I liked it.
Yeah, thanks.
See, you're defining animal abuse in a way that God doesn't, because God tells
all those industries they abuse.
He says that, but yet he hasn't offered a parameter of what he considers to be animal abuse. Like that description I gave about artificial insemination. Is that not abuse? But yet he wouldn't deal with any of that. So
animals.
You can define it how you want it, but I go by what God says in His Word, and He does give us permission to eat meat in the Bible.
That you hunt yourself.
He does give us.
Do you hunt all the meat that you eat?
Okay, let's get into that because I think that you're doing that off of what I was texting you, right?
Yeah, I think so. Or maybe I read it in your book. I don't remember exactly at the time. But
okay,
that is in your book, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. And let me give you the context to that. And I feel sorry, boy, for everybody listening, you're hearing this for the first time, but he's probably sick of it by this point. But so we're back here again with Moses. Okay, now we're going this direction. He's taking them from captivity to a place called the Promised Land, Canaan. All right. So when you get into Canaan, remember all those rules that brought your ability to eat meat down to this much? Remember, we could do it this much, but God gave us all these regulations. This guy's calling it permission to eat meat. I'm saying it wasn't permission, it was regulation. Keep that in mind. Whenever you talk to us Christians, they don't get that. You've got to be able to hammer that into their head with all that crap I explained to you already. So now we're here. Moses is bringing them into the Promised Land. And the Promised Land, Canaan, is such a huge place, they can't get to the altar. They can't get to all these specific things. And remember, the only time they could eat meat is when it was offered in sacrifice. They couldn't just go to a drive-through. They just couldn't go to a restaurant. Meat had to come from sacrifice. That was part of the rules that God said. So no more just going into the flocks in the backyard and grabbing a goat and just saying, let's have goat burgers tonight. No, it had to be sacrificed. It was all part of the worship situation. When they got here, they'd be so far away from the temple, they couldn't get to the temple to do that. So those words about go hunting it yourself also come along with the word lust. Over and over again in Deuteronomy, it says, when your soul lusts for meat, when you lust, when it's such a strong desire that you lust. It's not saying, oh, I just want to have steak tonight. It's like, if you think you're going to go out of your mind because you can't get, fine. But again, you can't just take it from there. And since you can't get to a temple to do a proper sacrifice, go out and hunt it. You see how God, again, is making it difficult. None of these rules that God gives us regarding eating meat make it easier. It always makes it more difficult. And a lot of the old rabbis from, in the first century, they would say it was God was showing them, training them how to curb their lust for animal flesh. He was trying to wean them off of it. Again, like that little kid crying, just getting them to a point to where spiritually they're mature enough to say, we shouldn't be doing this. Because remember, if you look back here into Genesis chapter 1, God said, I give you dominion. They're like, yeah, the earth is ours. And then in two verses later, he goes, or one verse later, he goes, and plants will be your food. And they go, oh crap, we're supposed to be vegan. We're eating meat. We got dominion, but we're supposed to have vegan dominion. You see how it's all starting to tie in? Am I tying?
Exactly.
Okay. So it looks like permission if you just take a verse here or a verse there. But when you look at this whole story, and right now I've just taken you from Adam and Eve here up to the land of Canaan, all right, and their journey and all this stuff, and you can see how it's slowly pulling animal flesh out of their diets. You with me?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
So don't
Because I
you
care
agree
about
that
your soul
bestiality
more
is
than
wrong?
I do. Scripture speaks to that as
So
well.
you should be worried about yourself, not me.
But what about your soul? Because if
I'm worried about, I can be worried about myself. You should be
if
worried
don't
about
believe in
yourself.
God, the Bible says actually the fool has said in his heart that there is no God, my friend. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. The wages of that sin is death.
He's on his evangelical trip. That I don't want to really address any of that, so I'm just going to let him keep talking until we get to the next vegan point.
You're just deflecting because you know that I'm right.
No, what I'm doing is
You pay for bestiality and animal abuse.
I've told you what I think about it, and I already gave you an answer, which is simply, I do what God says in His Word. He doesn't say in His Word that it's wrong to eat meat, and so I'm not going
But
to
the
make
meat
a
that you
law.
eat, you should hunt yourself.
You're making a verse. God say that in the Bible.
Which verse is that?
Where does it say it in the Bible? No, you're stating
BH,
that
can
we
you
should do that.
give me that verse?
Genesis chapters
I've seen
8
it. I
and
can't
9.
tell you which one
Genesis
it is.
chapters 8 and 9 speak of that as well as that.
We've already talked about Genesis 8 and 9, where God gave us permission, and that was the remes part, remember? So he keeps referring to that because in his brain, it means God gave him permission for cows, chickens, and pigs. As I said, if he just did a little bit of Hebrew study, he would know that that was never permission for any of that. It was permission to eat things that swarm. There's also another study that I haven't finished reading yet, but I'm looking into it and I want to find more, where it was even more specific than things that swarm. It could actually mean just maggots. I know. I got to look into that more. I don't know. If you ever check out Creation Care Church, I think he's going to do a sermon on it too. But you know what? If I get it, I'll try and relay it because I don't want to make you sit through a sermon. So let's go back to Street Dude.
So I can look up the specific verse in those chapters.
Sure. Do you have a Bible?
Of course I do, yeah. But in the end, my friend, what you believe about eating meat doesn't change the fact that we all have sinned, and that's what I'm here to talk about.
Did you see how he said, I'm going to look it up? And then he just switched to all have sinned?
Right.
He's like, well, you leave me hanging, bro. Come on. Don't leave me hanging here. Finish what you started.
That's what I care about for you, is that your souls are right with God, because Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but by me. And so I just...
And again, he's being sincere. He really wants to help people here. So, I give him, a gold star for that.
I urge you, my friends, to think about that today.
You were saying Genesis 8 and 9?
Yes, Genesis chapter... Well, first, this is a greater taking of life than the taking of life in an animal. I do want to read this. It's from Genesis chapter 9. It says, whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed, for in the image of God he made man. And so I would like to say there's a distinction between animals and between people. People are made in the image of God, he says here in Genesis.
Let's go into. You want to go in a little more on the image thing? Have you got time?
Yeah, sure, I got time.
Okay. Just because animals were not mentioned in that, I mean, the 10 Commandments doesn't say thou shalt not drive your car into a building and kill innocent people. But, we don't need a thou shalt not to understand that the Bible is about compassion, love, mercy, kindness. And it sounded there like he was trying to make the argument that, well, since it only says humans, that animals, obviously, you can do what you want. No, it doesn't. Just because they're not there doesn't mean compassion doesn't apply to them when we've got, 66 other books in the Bible, 65 other books other than Genesis. And you know that, right, or no? The Bible is 66 books total. It's not just one.
I knew it was many books. I didn't know that number. That's more than I would have guessed. Yeah.
Yeah. And some Bibles are even better. Like the Catholics will even have other books in there that the let's just say mainstream Protestant Christians don't have. And if you go back to there's little nuances and differences that back and forth. Did you freeze up? Your eyes are closed. Huh. Oh, there you are. Okay. You looked like you went frozen on me.
Yeah, it cut out for a second.
Oh, okay. So let's go into the whole image thing. Whether animals are equal to humans. I think when the Bible does it, and I give this story in my book, that, did you get to the part where I talk about human exceptionalism?
I don't know if I read that part. I skip around a bunch, so I didn't read the whole thing in order.
Cool. No, I'm glad you do it. I even wrote it like that, so you can just grab pieces what you need. But this is a good one that the activists who are watching, and hopefully you'll benefit from this. But think about this. You're a mom or you're a dad, whoever you are. You're driving home from work one day. You got the radio on. You're listening to your favorite tunes. Hopefully it's something from my generation. And you hear the newscaster pops on and says, there's a shooting at the local school and 3 kids are dead. Horrible. Just horrible. What is the first thing a Christian does? Do they pull over and get on their knees and pray, please God, let my child be the one that's dead? No, they don't. They pray that their child is alive, because that child is exceptional and has more meaning to that mom or that dad, to you, than the other kids. Now, do you think the other 2 kids that were shot and killed, do you think they are of no value? No, you think those kids have equal value to your kid. But your kid has more value to you. He's made exceptional. He's made in your image. He is your child. And that's the way God treats, I feel, this is my answer, is that God treats us like we are that child. And it's not that the other kids, the animals, are unimportant. It's just that the humans have that personal relationship that the animals don't quite have with God. So it doesn't make them lesser. Like, I would not want those other kids to die, but I would definitely want my kid to live. Does that kind of give you a framework to deal with how God would look at the, even though he puts humans higher, animals are not lower? Even
right. Yeah.
Does that
makes
help
a lot of sense. Yeah, it does.
Thanks. Okay. Let's go back to Street Preacher Dude.
All animals were created. We are animals, though.
Not by what God says.
But God created animals too, right?
Sure, he made animals, but not in his image. They're not image bearers of God who represent.
See, and he just doesn't quite grasp that analogy I just gave you, because he's really thinking that if you're not, either you're superior or you're inferior. He just won't accept it. Yet it's crazy that in the Bible, when God talks about it, I mean, I can go into Genesis chapter 9, 5 times after the flood, God made promises to the animals. Okay, he made promises to Noah that he's never going to flood the earth again. He made the same promises to animals. Why is God making covenants, promises with animals if they mean nothing? Yeah, Noah means a little bit more, but that doesn't mean the other animals are totally like, well, they're sandwiches now.
Why did he give them the ability to suffer and the desire to live?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? Like, he doesn't grasp that animals suffer.
What do you mean?
Animals. All animals have the desire to live and the ability to suffer.
Yeah.
So why would he he make them in that image,
That's
and
not
then
the image of God.
and then tell
That's
us
not
that
what-
it's okay to
That's not
kill
what
them.
the image of God is. The image of God is to be the representative of God, where God gave specific life into the animal, giving instinct.
Okay, humans are made in the image of God. I'm going to deal with what he believes. All right, all we know about that, again, remember, these people here heard they were made in God's image. All they know about God's image is the 25 or 26 verses prior, and God is in the creating business. He's not in the destroying the things that he created. He is not into inflicting pain on the things he created. He created them with desires that you are taking away if you eat them. See? Okay.
Who was
And
that
then-
written to? Who wrote that and who was that
In
written
Leviticus, it says
to? Who wrote that and who was that written to?
if you kill an animal an improper way, then it's just as bad as murdering a
Who
human.
wrote that and who was that written to? Who wrote that? Who was he writing to?
If you kill an animal in an improper way,
Hold on. Who wrote
it's just
that?
as bad as murdering a man.
It doesn't say that. Where's
Yes, it does. In Leviticus, it says that. Remember, I told you about all those temple rituals that have to be done to the animal before you eat it? All the, the priest with the ancestry, and it has to be killed at the temple. The blood has to be poured, and all that. Okay, if you don't do it, the same word that is he goes, you'll be responsible for murder. That's where you can use it. However, now this is a tricky one to use for vegan outreach. I do it because it's true, and I can get into a whole bigger Bible discussion. I don't always recommend it for somebody like yourself who isn't, all Bible savvy like I am. So, but that word that is used, if they do kill the animal properly, well, it's not murder. But if they kill it improperly, it's called murder. The same word that David uses when he had Uriah murdered. So, yeah, you can say it's murder of an animal, but it's a tricky one. If you do it the right way, it's not considered murder. So that's a difficult one, but at least he was wrong there.
say that?
In Leviticus.
Where? What verse?
I'm not sure what verse exactly.
Yeah, because it doesn't say that. But here's the thing: who wrote
It does.
that? Who wrote
It
that?
does.
Where was he writing to? Who wrote that? So if you're going to quote it, you got to know the context of it. Who wrote Leviticus? Who wrote Deuteronomy? And who was he writing to? Googling it doesn't count.
I'm not Googling it. There's another Christian in here, and you can see.
Yay, that's me.
He said Moses wrote it to the Israelites.
Yep.
Is that right?
There you go. That is right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what would
Okay, that was a whole heck of a lot, and it probably left you dizzy, huh?
Yeah, it was weird that he was saying that that's not the law, but that was basically what he was quoting the whole first time I was talking to him, that whole first part.
I'm so glad yes, you're exactly 100% right. It's like when the law, the Mosaic law was good for animal eating, he was quoting it. But when you used it to show how wrong it is, all of a sudden it's not relevant. So yeah, you caught him on that right there for sure. I like that. I think what he's doing there, he's totally right that Moses gave this law, or God gave Moses this law to the Israelite people, which was different than the laws and rules he gave to Abraham, which was different than the laws and stuff in the New Testament. Okay, God was saying different things to different people at different times. This part of this would be considered dispensationalism, where God dealt with people differently as we go across time. And the law that God gave to Moses was really just for one small pocket of people. It lasted for about 1,200 years, and then it was gone. All right, so all those rules on sacrifices really don't apply to anybody in existence except to that one, those Hebrews that were rescued from slavery. So for him to keep using them, we can say we can learn from them, but none of that was written to us. So he's right, but he's still reaching into it when it's convenient for him. That's cherry picking.
grace? So that law doesn't apply.
Do you understand what he meant by law and grace?
No, what did he mean by that?
Okay, it's a Jesus-y thing. I try not to talk about it, but I'll do it because I think since he brought it up, I want you to understand it. At the time God gave Moses those first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, It was instructions. That's what Torah means. It means instructions. It was to give those people instructions on how to live. Remember, they were all messed up. They had all these pagan beliefs. These are now rules on how to serve God. Well, once Jesus died, he was supposed to fulfill the law. So now when Jesus died, and that's way over here in the New Testament, we put away all that, and now we do what Jesus says. So it's almost like, we're improving. Our intelligence is growing. We're becoming more spiritually mature. And Jesus is ushering in a new way for us. So there's saved under the law, which was practically impossible, or pretty much always impossible, and saved under grace. Grace is like, you don't have to be good. You don't have to be perfect. God's going to look at you and say, you know what? I'm accepting you because Jesus paid the price for your sin. That's what grace is. So whether you're a liar, a cheater, a sinner, God's like, I don't care. I want you to serve me. I want to be your friend. I want to be your God. I want us to have a relationship. And that's what being saved under grace means. So is it licensed to sin? No. It just means that if you do, don't worry, you're forgiven. But but then the magic part comes where God says, I know what's in your heart. Are you sinning because you're like, oh, I can get away with it? Or are you sinning because you're an alcoholic and you really just can't stop drinking? You're just so addicted. God's like, I know you're trying to stop drinking. I forgive you. I know you're trying to stop lying. I forgive you. But you're like, well, I can just lie and get away with it because Jesus died for me. God's like, no, Meshuggah, there's no way you're getting away with that. I know better. Is that grace? Okay.
Right. Okay.
To us, and in the same way that it did to them and applied to them, and that they were given a specific.
This guy's running you through the whole Bible.
In Exodus, God fed them only bread from heaven, known as manna.
He also gave them quail.
Okay, let's deal with that one. All right, because I think I said that to you, and then is that when you said it? Okay, there's two accounts of that. It's in Exodus and Deuteronomy. In Exodus, it says that he fed them manna from heaven for the 40 years they were traveling in the wilderness. And in Deuteronomy, it says they were crying, God, this is how bad they were. Remember how I said they were whacked out? They were just like really into this pagan worship. They're like, God, back when we were slaves in Egypt, we got to eat meat. Can you imagine that? Picture this. They just got rescued from hundreds of years of slavery. They're being led to the promised land where they're going to have everything they want. And God is feeding them nothing but bread, manna from heaven while they're traveling. All right. And what do they say? They're like, God, we miss the meat that we had when we were slaves. Like, you ungrateful, whiny brats. I mean, can you hear that? So what did God say? God's like, fine, you want meat? I'll give you meat. I'll give you quail. I'll give you so much quail that it comes out your nostrils. It says that in the Bible. It says it'll come out your nose. And then while you're eating it, God killed them while it was still in their mouth and they're chewing it. Now, does that sound like God wants you to eat meat, or is God using quail? Unfortunately, quail died, according to this story. But is that permission, or is that God saying, fine, eat your quail and die? See? When you hear the whole...
Sounds like a punishment.
Exactly. When you hear the whole story, you understand what God's getting across. This guy is just picking little pieces of the story to fit his narrative. Oh, I don't know why. I don't know how my fellow Christians don't, you can't just... I'm babbling on about what I said earlier, aren't I? Okay, back to our story.
Here's his vision. But he became hungry and was desiring to eat. And while they were making preparations, he fell into a trance and saw heaven open up, and an object like a great sheet coming down, lowered by four corners to the ground. And there were in it all kinds of four-footed animals with crawling creatures of the sky and birds. And a voice came to him, "Rise up, Peter, slaughter and eat." But Peter said, because he's understanding this in his mind in light of the Mosaic covenant that he has been under, but now he's transitioning from the Mosaic covenant to the new covenant, which no longer has those stipulations. He says, wait, hold on a second. Rise up and slaughter. He says, by no means, Lord, for I have never eaten anything defiled and unclean. Again, a voice came to him a second time. What God has cleansed, no longer consider defiled. And so in this vision, he's told by God specifically to eat. and what he's always considered to be unclean by those Old Testament stipulations that he was previously under before he came to Christ. When a person comes to Christ,
I remember
they're no
this.
longer
You
under
really
law.
got him after this
Now,
one.
they were specifically under the Mosaic law to keep its stipulations, and if you haven't kept those stipulations, and that means a curse, God says in Deuteronomy. So that's why I asked you, my friend, like if you've ever told a lie, if you've ever stolen something, used God's name in vain.
My
that
friend,
means
you're
you're
saying
under
that
same law.
Peter's vision was about all people being equal, not permission to eat animals.
So that is.
You read the whole
ultimate,
chapter?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the application, the ultimate application, as Peter goes to.
The ultimate application. That is the application. It's you called him out, man. You got him on that one. I could see the little squirrel running around in his head going, how do I make sense of this now? I'm busted. Peter, this had nothing to do with eating animals. Very good work on that one.
Cornelius is the centurion, and in the same way as they were allowed to eat the animals, they were also allowed to welcome the Gentiles as part of the people of God, because for so long, not only could they not eat those things, not only could they not separate, or they also couldn't.
Twice Peter talks about that. At the end of chapter 10, he says, I cannot, he doesn't say, they don't say, let's have a barbecue. They don't say, hey, we can finally eat pig now. What does he say? God sent me a vision that lets me know I can now hang around with non-Jewish people. Because at that time, there was segregation big. I mean, you were either a Jew or a Gentile. And the two of them could not hang out together. So here Peter's like going to a Gentile's house, and he's saying, God told me this is cool now. We can do this. So that was major. And then when he was criticized for it, in the next chapter, in chapter 11, he goes, you don't understand. God told me it was okay to hang out with Gentiles. He could have said, and eat animals. He could have said in chapter 10, and eat animals. He didn't. And there was no talk anywhere after that of anybody ever eating a pig. There's just no evidence to support what this guy is saying, that it meant both things. It only meant the one thing. And here's the other thing. Remember when we talked about law and grace? Jesus died here once grace was entered in, but Peter is still keeping the law, saying, I've never eaten anything unclean. So he's still doing what was a big confusion time, big transition time. That needs to be taken into consideration. This is way too deep of Bible stuff for you, isn't it? You're ready to die.
It's interesting. It's a lot to take in, but I'm interested in it. So.
Okay, I appreciate this because, well, this guy's covering so many of the basics that Christians give to vegan activists that when I heard this, and I'm like, if we can talk about this, I know this is going to go long, but it's really going to be beneficial for anybody who watches this, for activists.
Chapter 6.
Can you read the end of that chapter, though?
No, I just agreed with you that he is speaking to.
See, he said he agreed with you, but he didn't want to go any further with that. Yeah, I think, he's going to be thinking about what you said to him when he got home. I'm sure of it. Because I could see he was considering, he was going through his mind about when Peter met Cornelius, and he was trying to explain it, but at the same time he was just doing it on the fly, like trying to make sense of it as he goes along.
Yeah, I think I don't know if after I was finished talking with him there, or I left and I came back and walked by him, I gave him one of my cards that had my channel on it. I'm pretty sure he's commented on some of my videos.
Oh, if you find it, let me know and just, tag me or however that works. And because I'll be happy to pop in. Or if anything, once this video is done, all you got to do is just keep posting this video. Say, check this out here. Check this out. Check this out. We discussed it. And who knows? Oh, I'm glad you're still in contact with him. That's wonderful.
Yeah, he said that he goes there every week, but I've never seen him there before. But I'll keep an eye out for him because I go out at least twice a week to the same area. So I'm sure I'll probably see him again.
Oh, that would be great.
The reality that also the Gentiles get to be part of that, that vision, there's the application to it, which is Gentiles get to be part of that. I'm not disagreeing with that.
See, he's not disagreeing. I think this is the first time, though, he's had to put those two together. Good for you. You got him on that one.
But I'm also not saying that that means that we can't eat the meat, because listen to what he says here. For sin shall not be master over you, Paul says, for you are not under law, but under grace. So what you're stating are ceremonial laws. According to Paul, when a person believes upon Jesus Christ, you're no longer under law. You're not under that law. That was specifically to Israel. I'm not part of Israel.
Then why did you quote all those permissions given to Israel earlier? See? Nonsense.
So we don't have those. Listen to what Paul goes on to say in the book of Romans. He says, now we accept the one who is weak in faith, but not for the purpose of passing judgment on opinions. Opinions. Notice that word. One person has faith that he may eat all things. But he who is weak eats vegetables only. That's what Paul says. The one who eats must not be the one who does not eat with contempt. So
I agree. If you only eat vegetables, you're probably going to be pretty weak. Because
no. He's saying no,
you're not going to be able to get everything from vegetables.
That's not what he's talking about, weakness. He's talking about spiritually weak, the weaker brother
Sure.
who doesn't feel free to eat the meat. He says you can eat anything. But then there's...
Okay, I'll go on to this, and I think this... Do you understand what he means by weaker Christians can't eat meat or don't eat meat?
Yeah, once he said that, it was more of like a mindset, like, and I kind of understand what he was saying, but I'm sure you could explain it a little better.
I'll try. I hope when I do this, do I sound like him? Am I that? I'm probably, I don't hear it in my own self, but I'm like, I'm probably that boring when I do this. I wish I wasn't. But, okay, the Apostle Paul, now, okay, remember, Moses is here, Jesus died about here, now we're over here. Remember, they're transitioning, they're coming from the law into grace. And that food that was offered in sacrifice was being eaten by the Christians. Okay, they might not have been called Christians at that time, it was just beginning. But when you ate something, there was a custom that was very common to the Jews. In other words, when they said, come break bread with us, it meant a lot because you were joining with them. If you ate a cinnamon roll, okay, and I broke it in half and I gave you half and I ate half, well, you and I are now joined together because once we digest that cinnamon roll, all that gooey goodness becomes our body, and our body is now joined because we've connected through that. So when you ate meat that was sacrificed to a fake god, a pagan god, all right, you were like joining yourself to that pagan god. This is what the people were thinking. Paul, the apostle, is saying these pagan gods don't even exist. They're just hunks of wood, hunks of stone. The only God that exists is, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Moses. That God, that's the only one. So eat the meat if you want. It doesn't matter. You're not joining to any God. But some of them are saying, well, wait, I'm this new Christian. I'm still scared. I don't want to do anything. Paul's saying, fine. Then if you're still weak in your faith, where you don't quite grasp this new salvation under grace yet, then just eat the vegetables. But don't get mad at somebody who understands it and is eating the meat. You follow? It's not that they're eating meat. If they eat that meat, they're not joining to a God because those gods don't exist. They're just eating meat. They're just eating food. Paul wasn't giving a carte blanche permission to eat meat. He was just saying, eat it. Don't worry. It's not connected to a God. Those gods don't exist. Okay? Only the weak Christians who are eating vegetables still think it connects you. Got it now?
Right.
So it sounds like meat permission or vegans are weak. It has nothing to do with veganism. It wasn't about, there wasn't a vegan fight going on in the church. It was not about veganism. It was about connection to pagan worship.
Some who would say,
but you should choose compassion, right?
So he would say, then there's some who would say that I can eat, right? And I'm going to eat. Then there's the one who says I can't eat. So the one who can eat the meat shouldn't look at the one who can't with a downgrading attitude. So I don't look at you as any less because you may choose not to eat meat. That's totally fine.
See, it's about a spiritual. It's not that we're looking down on them because they're eating meat that was joining them to God. We're looking, I don't want to say looking down, but I'm going to use it just because that's the example Street Preacher Dude was saying. I would say, I'm not looking down on you because you're eating, I'm looking down on you because you're eating a product that was made from animal abuse and bestiality, a product that denies animals every natural behavior that God gave them for something you have no physical need for. This is not the first century where Jesus and his 12 buddies are walking along the shores of Galilee, you know, and there's like nothing to eat, where if they had to eat a fish to survive, it was a survival thing. You have the ability to go that direction or that direction in 2 minutes, be in front of a grocery store and get food from around the world. You have a choice the apostles never had. That's why I'm looking down on your choices. I'm not looking down on you. I'm looking down at your choice when you choose violence over compassion. Does that wrap it up a little bit nicer?
Yeah.
Okay. Boy, can you imagine? Look at you and I are already like an hour and a half on this. Can you imagine if I was talking to this dude? We'd be there for 3 days.
What I care about is your soul. Yeah, so I know that you're a sinner because God says that we all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So I'm not here making a statement based on...
Okay, here I think it starts getting a little bit evangelical between the two of you. You want to call it the quits on this then?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. Because I don't want to go too much. I think, you know, well, like I said earlier, I want to respect my atheist viewers and yourself, and you know, like I said, I believe it, but I think I don't want to make my channel for that. Or maybe at least not yet. Who knows where I'll go in the future. But well, that was either a waste of your night or hopefully you were educated a little bit. What do you think?
No, it was great. You're kind of like the cool teacher at school, you know?
Am I?
Yeah.
I never had a cool teacher at school. I had one teacher in my chemistry class. She was so nice. She knew I couldn't grasp it and I was doing terrible. And she's like, just write jokes on the page. I'll give you points for every joke you write. And I'm like, all right, you rock. She knew I was trying, you know? And
right.
Gosh. Did you do good in school?
When I wanted to.
Yeah. I graduated with all D's. I'm like, I'm just going to do what I need to do because I'm having way too much fun going out and goofing off with my friends. These are my teenage years. I'm not advising this to the kids watching.
Right. Yeah, I was really good at passing the tests, but I didn't like to do any homework. So.
Oh, man. And you get to school the next day and you're like, no, I didn't do it. Oh, man. All right. How do we wrap this up then? What do you think? Got anything you want to add?
I mean, thank you very much. That was really nice.
Oh, dude, I got to thank you. I mean, it's like I said when we started, you're allowing me to use you as a conduit to get this information to anybody who is bored enough to sit through a whole hour and a half of me babbling like this. But it's so hard because you really got to know Jesus stuff if you're going to talk to people like me. And how do I get this across to atheists who don't want to hear a single thing about... Some people are not just atheists, but they're anti-Christian, you know? They're like, I don't even want to hear it. I'm like, well, that's not going to help the truth, or the thing I'm trying to say is, what's going to help the animals?
Right.
You know, I'm here to help the animals, or else I would be saying, Jake, I want to share the love of Jesus Christ with you. I haven't done that yet, and I don't think I ever will. I'll let somebody else do that. Let the street dude do that with you. I'm taking your trust in me to at least share the information on how to do the vegan thing, and that's what I want to try and do. So I try so hard, and I hope I don't. I'm sure I do fail somewhere down the line here and there, but if I do, honest folks, it's not my goal. But and sometimes atheists. Oh, I'll tell you a gripe I have, and this isn't about their lack of belief. It's just like I'm trying so hard not to cross the line into evangelical preaching, you know, to keep it on the vegan side. But it seems like so many atheists, when they talk to a Christian meat eater, they want to fight their Christianity. I'm like, leave
Right.
your personal stuff, leave it out. Just talk about the vegan part. Talk about the animals are being hung upside down and stabbed in the throat. Don't try to convince him that Jesus doesn't exist. Don't try to convince him that God's a lie. This is not the time. You've got his ear. You've got his ear. Use it for veganism. I don't care if you hate God. I don't care if you're a devil worshiper. This is not the time to promote that. This is the time to help these animals who are screaming in pain. So
yeah, I think we need to focus on our similarities, not our differences, for the animals.
Amen, brother. Look at you. You're on your way to preaching. All right. So, all right, I am going to sign off. Hold on for just a second. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for sitting through this. If you haven't checked out Jake's channel, I will put a link to it down below. Please like and subscribe to his stuff. If you wake up early in the morning, get into his chat. I'm there at least once a week, if not twice. Well, it all depends on how busy I am and how tired I am. But if you do log on, say hi to everybody, get to know there's a lot of good vegan activists that check into Jake's live streams. He gets out there. As you can see, like with this street preacher dude, he just goes up and makes it happen. I haven't got the guts to do that. I stand on the side, but he does it. He's a warrior. So thank you, Jake. Thank you for watching, everybody. I'll see you on the next one. Until the next time, my prayer for you all is peace, love, and everything groovy. All righty. Hold on, Jake. I still want to talk to you.